Hello everyone, and welcome to Setting Up Your Environment. For this particular course, it's required and necessary, I should say, to ensure that you set up your environment correctly. So I wanted to spend some time on this video walking you through this. I don't anticipate everybody will nail this the first time, but it's not overly hard. But what we're basically going to be doing is setting up your environment and your web server. From the previous video, I talked about that we had this web server that we're going to be putting a lot of our back-end information on. That's true. And also we need a web server to put our HTML documents on. We talked about back-end, but the HTML documents need to go on the server also that will be rendered that the client will see, okay? And so we got to get our web server set up. I think it's the best way to handle this course. And we provide you a web server here at Cincinnati State so you can actually kind of do everything. We also provide you a URL. Anyway, so the objectives of this particular course is to ensure your account is set up. As people come and go in this class, sometimes the accounts get missed, especially if you register late. And so if that's the case and you do what I tell you to do in this video and you don't find your account, you are to email me immediately and we'll get the account set up for you. Don't be alarmed. It just probably was an oversight, or once again, maybe you registered late for the course. Another thing we're going to do, we're going to learn about accessing our account through FileZilla. We'll talk extensively about that and what that means. We'll understand what our root directory is. We'll set up our root directory, and we'll update your accounts through FileZilla, and I'll show you how to do that. And then finally, a little bit about the Notepad++, okay, as we kind of get into that. All right, so I'm going to be going in and out of this particular PowerPoint to kind of show you things, so kind of bear with me as we go through this. Might be a little bit of a messy video, but it'll do the trick for you and help you through your initial setup for your for this course. Okay. So to ensure your account is set up, the first thing we need to do, each of you have been assigned an account. When you actually register for this course, we've got a list of everybody, and prior to the course starting, we set up an account on what's called the ITD server, so IT department server. It's a server dedicated really for all our students in computer program database management to do web-type programming, web-based programming, okay? And so it's there for you. We take care of this for you. It gets backed up and all those types of cool things. So it's also a great way to, we're a place to load all your projects, and for me or any of your instructors to see them, and also to ensure that they work correctly. All right, so I can actually see your code and everything else that you upload, and I also can test your code very, very easily once all this is there. All right. So what we need to do to make sure that you actually did this correctly, or not, you didn't do it correctly, make sure it was set up correctly, we need to go out and make sure, we'll get into that here in a few minutes, that it's there, okay? And so based upon the course you're in, there is a kind of an acronym for the course such as this, and then a dash and your last name and first initial. Every course will be a little bit different. If you look within this folder, it will tell you what the actual acronym is going to be it PHP, be it web, be it HTML, and so on. So there should be a document or an item, I should say, within the folder of this setting up your environment telling you exactly how this should look. All right. So in this case here, to make sure you actually have your account set up, if you typed in itd1.cincinnati-state.edu, this is actually the name of the URL pointing to the ITD server here at Cincinnati State. / this acronym dash your last name, first initial. If it doesn't come up, you'll get something like this, directory not found. If you get that error and you didn't fat finger anything up here, meaning you didn't spell Cincinnati incorrectly or anything, which happens a lot. I get a lot of students telling me that it doesn't work, and I look and I see like 4 N's or something in there. So make sure you spell everything correctly there. And then, but if it doesn't work and you tried it a couple times, let me know and we'll check it out. But if it does work, what you should get is a page like this: welcome you to the Cincinnati State Development Server, and blah, 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 blah. And you can actually use this and some of the stuff that's actually sitting there. And again, some of this stuff we'll talk about a little bit later. Does that make sense? All right, so for the most part, that's the first thing you should do. Make sure your account is there, make sure it's all good, and then we're good to go. If you're thinking the account is not set up correctly, email me, and we'll get that taken care of for you as soon as we possibly can. All right, let's get back to my PowerPoint. Since we're going to be going back and forth, I think I'm just going to kind of continue with this video just like this, okay? And so accessing accessing account through FileZilla. So now that we know you have an account, what we need to be able to do is actually get on that account. Now, again, this is a server. This is a server that could be located pretty much anywhere. Right now, it's located in Cincinnati State for you. That's great, but you can get a server located anywhere around the world. If you actually bought some space on GoDaddy.com, they have their own web servers. So those are all web servers that you actually place all this web type programming stuff on. Okay. To access that, to get there, to be able to move stuff to that location on that web server, you need to be able to ensure that you need to be able to get there. You need to be able to access it, and you do that via a piece of software called FTP software. Okay. So it must be understood that to develop for the web, we will develop our programs on our personal computer using a common editor, like Notepad++, for instance. All right. Once we feel we're ready and we want to copy those files from our computer to the web server, this is where this all comes into play. To copy, we must use the internet. And to copy, we must use a protocol over the internet called FTP, File Transfer Protocol. There's been a lot of software created to actually make this a little bit easier. There's a long way of doing it, meaning you can actually type it into your browser, or you can actually use a piece of software. And trust me, you want to use a piece of software because it's so much easier to use. Maybe one of these days I'll teach you how to do it the long way. Not sure why you would want to know that. But a really nice piece of software that we use extensively here at Cincinnati State, it's free and it's easy to use, is called FileZilla. Kind of a weird name, but it is a nice piece of software. That will be our FTP software, okay? We need to make sure you have FileZilla. It's free. It's no big deal. If you haven't downloaded it yet, you should do so now. All right, you may want to pause this video and get this thing downloaded. I have this this PowerPoint available as part of this video, and you can go to the PowerPoint and you can get this particular URL that goes to the location. Excuse me. Of course, you could also go to Google and just Google FileZilla, and the link will come up for you. All right. Once you get there, you're going to find a screen that's going to look very similar to this. FileZilla, download FileZilla client. Notice the big arrow. I wrote that in there myself. The point to here, that's what you click, and it will start your Windows 64-bit download. It's a pretty easy, pretty simple load, pretty simple thing to load onto your computer. So once again, make sure you have that all set up even before we actually continue on here. So I would pause this video, get this all taken care of, and then come back right now and kind of get it started. Okay, hopefully you now have FileZilla on your account or on your computer, and you're all ready to go. So now that you have FileZilla, what the heck does that mean? Well, let's get into it ourselves here. FileZilla looks like this. It's kind of an interesting thing. I got my stuff already kind of set up here, but I'll do it again for you to help you understand. What again we are doing is we're taking stuff from our computer, and that would be our computer here, okay? I don't know why I'm sitting on this gentleman's side here. I'm going to go up a little bit. And so our computer, and then what we're doing is we can actually see the documents and so on our computer, and that's what the left side is all about. This over here is literally the file server, meaning what we're connected to. In this case, idt1.cincinnati-state.edu. To get to this, what you need to do is you can actually type in all the information sitting right here, or you can very easily type in and create a new account that you can actually go to. It's called a new site. And once you kind of get into this new site, let's see what's not working here very well. I'm not sure why my new site didn't work. Come on down here. You want to come down? Okay, well, I'm not going to do that. There you go. And I'll cancel out that. But you can actually use that. But if you don't use that, let's just use this right here. What you want to be able to do, I'm going to take all this stuff out of here. And matter of fact, what I'm going to do is start all over with FileZilla. And so FileZilla might be on my computer. If not, you can just search for it right there. And there it is right there. Okay. And if you get this install new version, you can feel free to install it. If not, I'm not going to do that right now. What you got to be able to do is connect to our server. To connect to our server, or any server for that means that you'll ever do web programming on, you have to provide the host, the actual URL, name of the computer, your username and password. For Cincinnati State, I'll tell you what those are here in 1 second. For any kind of other hosting, they'll provide you that username and password. They'll tell you exactly what to type in there so you can actually get onto that account like you would to GoDaddy.com. In our case here, what you're going to do is type in Cincinnati State.edu. So itd1.cincinnati State, see that right there? .cincinnati State.edu. Your username is going to be Cincinnati State, all right, backslash or forward slash, I should say, and then whatever your user ID is, all right? So wherever your user ID is that you actually log into the Blackboard with, all right? And that goes along with your same with your password. So whatever your user ID is to log into Blackboard, and the same password that you use to log into Blackboard. Does that make sense? And so if you did that and you did everything correctly and do a quick connect, you don't have to do anything in the port here, you should see successful. Okay? So if you typed in this Cincinnati State / your user ID and then your password, you should see successful, and you would know they're good. How you doing so far? Okay? If you haven't done this yet, maybe listen to this first and kind of go through it. Once you're finished with that, then what you should do is type in that PHP or whatever that acronym is for this particular course, because it could change over time. So PHP dash your last name, first initial, and then your account will actually set up. You're going to have to forgive me for a second because my account is a little bit different than your account. So you're going to type in right after that backslash PHP dash your last name and your first initial. Okay, just like that. You got it? And then you will hit enter again. And once you hit enter, something should happen. And let me show you what should happen there. Okay. Again, please disregard what I'm doing right now. Mine's a little bit different than yours is, so I'm sorry about that. In this case here, if you set it up correctly and you put PHP backslash PHP Hirsch, just like this, okay? Just like that. Well, again, don't put Hirsch down, but put your last name and the first initial. This is what should come up. This right here should have kind of this little ellipse thing and a thing called index.htm. If you get to that, we're good. We got you. And this is where you're going to be doing all your work. This is called the root directory. Are you with me? You may want to listen to this a couple more times, back it up, kind of go through. Once again, please disregard what I did. What you want to be doing is putting PHP dash your last name, first initial, and this should pop up. If it does not pop up, once again, email me so we can get this thing taken care of for you. So it should be there. All right, let's go back here a little bit. All right, so where are we? Sign into your account, and so this particular piece we're talking about is your root directory. Okay, so let me go back out there again. So once again, what are we looking at here? Well, this is your computer. You should be seeing files on the actual computer you're working on, and this is the web server, and this is your account that we provided you. And so far what's out there is a simple little index.htm. Are you good? Okay. Let's get back here. Sorry, like I said, we want to do step by step here. All right, so now that we have that, we need to understand what the heck did I just say? What's a root directory? Every time when someone types in a URL to gain access to a website, like cincinnati-state.edu, for instance, it first takes that URL and it converts it to an IP address. It basically goes to a database that's sitting out in the internet somewhere. We'll just keep this as simple as possible. Takes your URL and converts it to an IP address. You may have seen these IP addresses. Again, there's like 66.1123. They're a set of numbers. And they really represent an address on the internet of where the file server is physically located. Interesting enough, it's basically an address. These file servers are all around the world, so it's an address that any file server within the world that it's located. So the www dot, I want to say www.Cincinnati State, you buy that, and then you take that URL, if you will, and link it to an IP address. That's actually how it works in the real world, okay? You would go by the URL and you would tell where the web server is located at by giving it an IP address. You'll know the web server's IP address because whoever you are working with their web server will give you that address. It all kind of works out. Then you go to a little piece of software on the internet and you link the two together. Then it propagates throughout the entire world and everything works. Whew. Do you follow that? We'll play around a little more of that later on in the course. But that's pretty much how it works, okay? It takes this address. Once the server is found, it immediately goes to the root directory of the website. So this root directory is the thing that your URL is actually pointing to, okay? And so when you type in cincinnati-state.edu, it goes, finds the web server, and it finds the root directory. All right? So what's beyond that root directory is one of these files, default.html, default.html, index.html, or it could also be .asp, .php, and so on. For us getting started, ours is going to be index.html. If you actually come back and we look at FileZilla again, you'll see it right there, index.html. Are you good? This is the initial website, the initial web page that will actually execute. Every root directory must have an index.html or a default or so on. For our case, for this class, we'll use index.html. For your assignments this week, you're going to replace that index.html that's on there right now that provided this default page right here. That's actually HTML, okay? And you're going to replace it with your assignment. Does that make sense? So you might say, well, how do I replace it with my assignment? Well, that's a good question. And so let's make sure, let's get back to the order here. So that we got our root directory, okay? And okay, we're going to get back to setting up correctly. But so, yeah, that's good here. And I'm sorry, again, I'm kind of hesitating, going back and forth. I want to make sure. But let's go ahead and do what I was saying before. If I want to update this, all I need to do is go find the file I'm working on. Let me just get a crazy file here that I might be working on. Here is, let's see. Well, it could be anything I'm putting on. I'm trying to find some HTML. I actually don't have any. But if I have my HTML document that I was actually working on saved out here, okay, what I would actually do is just click on it, okay, and what I can do is double click, and it will go, and it literally moves it from my computer over to the web server and your account. Does that make sense? Now I'm actually going to delete this, and it's actually gone. But I just take it. Now, if I actually have another index.html sitting over here, and I click it over, so I say, I bring it over, it's going to ask you if you want to replace it, and you would say yes. Does that help at all? I hope it does. So basically, you're going to have your file sitting over here. Let me just kind of come up to an HTML document I have here. Let's make sure I'm going to save this as, there you go. I'm going to save this as, let's go back to my libraries real fast, my documents, and IT117, and I will save this right here, okay? And matter of fact, just for shakes and grins, what I'm going to do is save it as index I'm going to have a couple of different versions of .htm. Okay, let's go back out to FileZilla. And what I'm going to do here is go ahead and do a upload. Let's see, I just want to refresh it real fast, and you'll see those two files I put there. So if I want to put my HTML example over here, all I need to do is double click. If I want to replace this current index.htm, all I would do is double click and it will replace it. Let me see what it does. It's going to say, do you want to replace this with this? All right. You can always use this action, say yes, overwrite it, or whatever you want to do. Okay. So I'll keep it right there. I'm going to go ahead and delete this again so I don't mess this up for a student who's already might be using this. Okay. Does that make sense? That's how it works. So these are on my computer. To get them over here, all I do is double click on them and they come right over. What do you think? All right. Let's continue on. Okay, back to the root directory. All right. So the root directory, one of the things you want to do with your root directory is you want to organize it. A root directory, you can have every file that's part of your web page, from images and cascading style sheets and scripts and all these web pages and everything else sitting on that root directory. And it kind of gets kind of messy. I think it's really important to organize yourself on the root directory. And the only thing that should be on the root directory should be basically your index page, the thing that's going to start everything, okay? And then some folders that's going to connect to a lot of other things that we're going to be actually doing in the future. So what do I mean by that? Well, these folders are content, images, styles, and scripts. You see that there? Okay. So how do I do that? Well, very simply. If I come here, let's see, we get back to FileZilla. What I want you to do is literally do a right click, and you're going to say create directory, and then you will actually put in content, just like this. Let's go ahead and continue on. Create directory, styles. One more time. Create directory, images. Finally, create directory and scripts. So what we have done, this is no different than literally a file directory on your Windows machine. We just basically created some more folders under this root directory. For sake of organization, we're going to put all our images here. That makes sense, right? All our scripts here, all our styles here, and our content here. What I usually like to see is within content, another subdirectory in which we would have maybe week 2 and week 3, and you would continue creating these all the way to week 15. Does that make sense? All right. So if I was to, want to put my particular assignment that like you would do this week, assignment 2, you'll probably put that under week 2, double click it, and that assignment now is on your URL, your account, and you can actually run it from there. All right, so if I wanted to run that, I'll actually show you right here. And so what I would have here is this, and I would say content / week 2 / that was HTML. Let me make sure I know what I called it. Let's get back out here. HTML example. Let me see if I HTML example.html. So if I actually wanted to run that, let's do that one more time. HTML. And there is my HTML that came from that particular document. Pretty cool. And that's that URL. This is the URL that actually gets to it. Now, what we're going to do and what you're going to do after this week, once you kind of get through some of the more of the content of this week, you will actually have links to all this. And you're going to set up a navigation page for me that will actually link to these particular weeks and these particular content within each week. Hope that makes sense. All right, and it will once you get to it. Okay. Ooh, this is getting long. I apologize. A lot of stuff to go through. So we just set up your directory. You're going to include weeks 1, 2, all the way to 15, and we're good to go. Updating your account through FileZilla. Okay, we now have our account. FTP your work to the corresponding week under the contents. I just showed you how to do that. Once again, pretty easily. There's the content. If I want to keep going back and get back up to my root directory, I hit this little ellipse here. All right. Once we start doing more things with scripts and images and so on, which we do in subsequent weeks, we'll add them here, and then we'll point to things correctly in our code, logically and relatively. Okay, we'll get to that in the next week or so. All right. Okay. Ooh, let's see. HTML editor. HTML is we're going to be using Notepad. Like everything you've developed so far, you need an editor to do so. Visual Studio, Eclipse, and so on is what you've been using up to this point. For this course, I highly recommend Notepad. In the subsequent video, I kind of go through using it a little bit, but for the most part, you need to make sure you have downloaded Notepad, okay? To do so, once again, here is the link. Or you can very easily go to Google and search for Notepad++. You will find it, and once you either use this URL I gave you here, or you Google it, you'll find a page that will look very similar to this. It's very explanatory, right? What you're going to do is click on this download right here button once you get to Notepad++. But so I really want to make sure you have that editor available. If you so choose to use other editors beyond Notepad++ for this course, you can. It's not going to make any difference to me. I won't even know. But for the sake of this course, I'm going to use Notepad++, and that's what you'll see me using in most of my videos. So if you're brand new to this, that's what I think you should be using also. Okay? As I told you in the beginning, this video is a little bit of going back and forth. Hopefully you follow what I was doing. If not, I would take this video and maybe rewind it to certain areas and make sure you get your environment set up correctly. Please don't hesitate to ask questions if you have some issues. It's really important we get it set up correctly now. And once you get it set up and once it's all working well, the rest of the course goes rather smoothly. Probably a lot more smooth than this video.